To define, we have to make sure we don't define it up and down. But what we want is to have the difference between explore mode, where you explore the process. You have to learn before you're gonna actually design. So you have to explore what do they do when they go out record or documenting the place. What do they do when they get inspired? Blah blah blah. And then you have a workspace mode. So the table has two main modes. We choose, because it's the main focus for this pilot, we choose workspace.
But we don't develop explore mode?
Hopefully that's where we have the most content.
Okay, okay.
And that could be more like Colaris-ish thing.
Okay.
Workspace! What do we do in workspace? We create a new design. Now it's this design group.
That's cool.
They have access to the task still. So if they press...
Is that task in Norwegian?
Yeah, task. It comes. This is... I guess there are reasons to think that we should scaffold the task instead of just having it as one big chunk in the start. But this is more representing that the task should be visible in the workspace somehow. So what do we call this project of ours? This is then one group. Typing with this little keyboard. We don't have a keyboard. We have a real keyboard.
Yeah, I took out the batteries and so on.
What is this name?
Lokale. It's the local place.
Typically, party,
yeah.
Local party.
But
dance.
right when you kind of mark the cell, keyboard comes up.
Some hands, please.
Use your hands. And then this. And this face. It's nice with this when we take picture. Okay, so now we have a lokale. Then we have a more or less elegant way of indicating the stages or browsing different. Yeah, it's all here. This is from one of your examples, Jeremy. This is a way of kind of opening and collapsing different areas. These all relate to each other. They're gonna make a facade, a plan, and then an overall concept. So we have to kind of represent that in a nice way. And if you press facade, and then I'm working now in facade. But this is a very simple way. Yeah. Ideally, these would connect to each other, so that when I do like this, maybe I jump to the horizon, and when I do like this, I come to the plane. So ideally, we could do more with gestures. This is very button oriented.
But you could imagine that doing like this.
Yeah, and then you could drag in.
Because these are three very different modes of the workspace in a way. This being the horizon, this being the map, and this being the more the hot
inspiration.
Yeah, and the hot linking.
And it would be ways of connecting. Maybe what we come to later is that you're gonna create argumentation for your choices with these hotspots, and then maybe they could also link that because the plane is like this. You have made a facade choice here. That's more the hyperlink.
So all the choices that they're making, are those going to be already there? They just have to assemble this and make the argument? So this is all coming from the internet and the wiki and stuff like that?
No.
So are they
You're gonna make the arguments on the table?
Yeah, but the material.
The material.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that simplifies.
Apart from maybe text. Text would be nice if they could actually
write.
That's
not bad.
But if you're then in one of these tasks workspaces, you have either the drawer or just one way of displaying predefined and user-generated content. on. Point is now there's videos, there are pictures of materials, there are landscape pictures that they have taken, animations like birds flying around, maybe sound they could add, because we really don't want it to be limited by how architectural representations of designs normally are. We want to add the possibilities that this table has, being
What do you mean by
dynamic.
how they normally are? You mean like static?
They are static. What we
Okay.
want is to, if we have the possibility, we would love to add some more dynamic elements. So if we're now at plan, no,
We are
doing
in facade.
We're doing facade. When is that we're gonna discuss? We can browse. This was
Okay, let's.
Hey!
So this moves down?
Yeah, you could think that it moves around.
Do you have more
or-
pictures? You can put here.
Can you try them, Ola?
No, it's, we tried to
It worked
create
the
this.
other way, the other day. But this is just
I guess we
one
have
way.
to supplement this with video.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the drawer thing,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's
So-
either it
so-
comes up when you kind of activate this area, so it's kind of open workspace, unless you activate, like you have a dock.
So this is the alternative, is to have a kind of a tab thing.
That's pretty cool.
So the tab, I mean, you slide it out and you get the drawer. Then you use the inside of that drawer to browse the material.
Ah, okay. So you have your like photo browsing
Yeah,
drawer.
yeah.
Like you know where to go. I like that idea of being a drawer of like your photos, your pile of your photos.
This is the groups. They have like expert groups before they all are mixed in design groups. Then these drawers could also represent the material from the various groups.
Yeah.
So it was already sorted.
Mm.
Or else it could also be
I
clustered
but I
and
like
sorted.
this idea of
This is
pushing.
very simple.
But we can just do that in a drawer though, possibly.
But I'm just afraid that the drawer would add an element of metaphor. Like, why? Why a drawer? Why? The point is that it's supposed to be accessible, and it shouldn't take up too much space.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So
the
whatever, if it's
design
like a
challenge, I think.
yeah.
I mean, once you decided on what material to actually use in your argumentation, you don't really need the whole repository of images. So that should go away.
Mm.
I mean, to save the school space.
Mm-hmm.
It also became clear that there might be a need to separate the ones that are interesting for you and the ones that are not.
Mm.
So let's say you have like all the repositories here. This one is something I want to use in our design. The whole class has this shares this repository. When I touch it, it gets different status in a way. And of course, whatever you touch gets more meta information when you touch it.
It's like a Hoover with your
It's a
finger.
Hoover.
Yeah. So maybe,
but
maybe
somehow of sorting, like, oh, this is interesting, I want to keep this, and then browse further.
but maybe 5-finger touch gives the metadata, for instance.
Like the Aho students, they did the
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. Somehow, yeah. Or maybe 4.
right.
I mean, yeah, I really want to.
And then there's also a need to have either a time logic or a lock. When you put something in a workspace, you don't really want to cover everything here. It needs to have an inactive state. This is active and then an inactive, so it could like zoom, becomes very small.
You mean thumbnail?
Yeah, it represents. So that's either manually by locking, that's a bit boring way of doing it, or a time
With the
logic.
the Jira planning task, they have a big state and a little state, but they have like a little arrow that when they press, it gets bigger.